Welcome back to the Grammar of Words. Last time we talked about general concepts, morphemes, allomorphs, different types of morphemes, including affixes, roots, bound morphemes versus free morphemes. Go ahead and review that material whenever you need it. In the next few lessons, we'll look at individual parts of speech. We'll start with nouns and the basic properties of nouns. Now, these aren't necessarily properties that belong to nouns, they're just properties that will most likely show up in nouns in the languages that many of you will choose to learn. Let's start with the property known as class. Class allows languages to categorize or group nouns. Class can be based on the form of a noun. For instance, in the Romance languages, the noun's ending, its suffix, often reveals the noun's class. Nouns that end in o in Spanish are masculine, but nouns that end in a are feminine, even though el cuarto means a room and la casa means a house. So there's not much relation between meaning and gender. Gender is a category that nouns are grouped into. There can be some correlation. For instance, in Spanish again, una mujer is feminine, and that means a woman, and un hombre is masculine, and that means a man. This holds for Spanish, other Romance languages, and the Indo-European family generally. Chinese, on the other hand, actually relates the noun's meaning to the noun's class. There's a classifier word that comes out when you're counting a noun, and this classifier shows the noun's class in Chinese. So these three words in Mandarin mean 1 cup alcohol, or 1 drink. The word bei there isn't necessarily cup, it's the classifier for that noun. In that case, we have a language that marks the noun's class more or less based on its meaning. Now, if you haven't dealt with it before, class can be a tricky concept to get used to, particularly because we no longer have noun class or noun gender in English. But we do have the next property we'll explore, which is grammatical number. Grammatical number is a way to count nouns. In the example I used earlier, in the last video, dog is a singular noun. We add the affix s, plural morpheme, which is a bound morpheme, to form the word dogs. In that case, we have a plural noun, so we see that English has an opposition between singular and plural for nouns. Other languages might have more numbers. For instance, in some forms of ancient Greek, you had a dual number to represent two instances of a noun. So there was a singular pos, which would mean a foot or just foot, pode for 2 feet or a pair of feet, and podes for more than a pair of feet, plural. The final property we'll discuss here is case. Case really shows the noun's use in a sentence, so we'll talk about 2 basic uses. The first is a noun as a subject. When the noun acts as a doer of an action, it is in the subject or nominative case. When a noun acts as the object of an action, it is in the object or accusative case. Some languages don't distinguish this. Classical Latin did. Modern Greek, Japanese, and a variety of other languages distinguish this formally. Take a Latin phrase, urbs murum habet, which means the city has a wall. Urbs has a nominative affix, a case marker telling you that it is the subject, the city. Murum has an object marker m telling you that it's an object, an accusative case. And habet is the verb, so you know that the city has a wall, and not that the wall has a city, because in Latin word order doesn't matter as much. In English, we show the subject and the object by word order. In other words, we place the subject before the verb and the object after the verb, and we avoid these case affixes. Okay, we now end up with 3 basic properties of nouns: case, number, and class. We can differentiate forms of nouns in languages, especially in fusional or agglutinative languages, that will mark these properties. And if we differentiate all these forms and we lay them out in a chart, we can come up with the entire declension of a noun. Sometimes this will be very basic. Sometimes this will be very complex. In a language like Latin or ancient Greek or Russian or Turkish, you have a variety of noun forms. In other languages like Chinese or Hawaiian, we don't really talk about the declension of a noun because the noun has one basic form and that applies everywhere. I hope this video has been helpful, and please join me next time when we'll talk about how verbs work.